What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. You know, I get a lot of messages and emails from Florida residents. Normally, they're the negative type of message. And that's fine, I understand. They have a lot of bad things going on in that state, and I keep pointing them out in videos. I get it. Really, all states and all cities have bad and they have good. They all have great small towns and they all have some pretty scary bad small towns. Most of the time, when you have a bad small town, it's in the backwoods of a state, far away from the big cities. And that's how they like it, out of sight, out of mind. Really, the local government, they like to keep their crappy towns off the beaten path. Florida is still gaining people at a good pace. Every day people are moving to the Sunshine State looking for a new life. Over the last decade or so, we've seen a rise in people leaving the cities and heading to small towns. A growing percentage of them are people who are working from home or have internet businesses. They don't need to be near a big city for work, and it makes a small town life more doable. I mean, why not? Cheaper land and lower cost of living in most small towns? What's not to love? Those are two of the main reasons to try and make it in a small town. And that's what today's list is all about, finding a small town in the Sunshine State. If you're thinking about moving to a small town in Florida, this list is about towns you should probably avoid. So sit back and watch my top 10 worst small towns in Florida. Number 10, Duck Key. Now normally you wouldn't find the Keys on here, but this one's kind of unique. Duck Key is one of the southernmost cities in the state of Florida. Now, living on the Keys is very popular and it's an easy way to brag about your wealth. Duck Key is slightly different, however. At the surface, it will look like any other Key city. When you look a little deeper, you realize that most of these residents can hardly afford to live here. Although the median household income is about $71,000, these home prices can be upwards of $2 million. A mobile home here that needs some work will not be any less than $300,000. You can get an 800 square foot lot for $200,000 here. That's a lot of money for 800 square feet. You wouldn't be able to get a single family home in any condition for any less than $500,000. This place isn't crowded and doesn't have many amenities like other Keys do. They have a bunch of vacant lots. This is like the trailer park of Keys. It is the kind of place that you brag to people that you live in the Keys, then you try and avoid telling them which Key. If you want to visit, you can get a room at the Waterfront Fun and Funky Duck Key Condo. That's a real place. Take a look. I don't know who named it that. It's ridiculous. Number 9, Everglades City. Everglades City is probably the closest habitable land to the Everglades. The Everglades is a national park that's really just a huge swamp. This is the type of place you move to if you really enjoy sweating and boredom. Sure, you have things like airboats and swamps to play in, but anyone that's ever lived in or around an alligator-infested swamp will tell you those get old quick. The city smells horrible all the time. The humidity here is suffocating. Then on top of it, you have to fear for your safety all the time because of alligators. If you move here, you're in luck. The city has a population of 400 other poor decision makers. Number 8, Glen St. Mary. Schools in Glen St. Mary are not the type of schools you'd want your kids to attend. It may be a good idea to enroll them in a private school or at least drive a short distance to McClenny for a better education. Actually, if you sent them to school in Savannah, Georgia, the 2.5-hour drive both directions every day would be totally worth it. The graduation rate here is only 72%, while the graduation rate in McClenny is 84%, and they also have test scores that are 10% higher than the national average. The overall crime rate in Glen St. Mary is 59% higher than the national average, and their unemployment is a staggering 87% higher than the national average. Number 7, Callaghan. Callaghan is a rather controversial area to live in. During the 1950s, when the KKK movement was really big, there were a total of 45 Claverns in the state. In case you don't know what a Clavern is, it's what they call a local unit of the KKK. With such a low population of about 1,300 people, the town still had its own Clavern, which, you know, only 1,300 people and they got that going on there in such a small town. Anyway, now, some people say they aren't there anymore and they're not active and it's all their history, but with history like that, with racism deeply rooted in the city, leaving many residents here still in that state of mind, a lot of people say. The poverty level in Callaghan is 65% higher than the national average. Number 6, Berrydale. There is nothing to do in Berrydale. Berrydale is a place you move to if you hate people and yourself And maybe you're into punishing yourself for some reason. And when I say punishing yourself, I'm not talking about that fun kind, so stop typing. We don't want to hear about your kink. This small town only has a population of about 450 residents as of the 2010 census. The only thing you'll find in this town is an animal feed store, a trucking school, a few churches, and a Dollar General. Anything more, you're gonna have to take a trip down to Pensacola, about an hour away. There is nothing worse than being a hot girl in a small town. The only place anyone ever takes you out on a date is either to the Dollar General or the woods. High school graduation rate here is 65%. Number 5, Madison. Madison is home to 5 public schools, an alternative school, and 2 charter schools. These schools educate a total of 2,675 students who are potentially at risk of getting dumber by going to school. They're not receiving the best education they could get through the public school system here. If you look at all their school stats on Area Vibes, you might cry. Recently, the school district has had to make some serious budget cuts, resulting in dozens of layoffs, which ultimately affect the students, as you can imagine. Because of all the pressure being made, it forced the superintendent, Dr. Pickles, to resign this month. And yes, that is her name, Dr. Pickles. It's not a character from VeggieTales. Number 4, White Springs. White Springs is located in northern Florida, only about 25 miles from the Florida-Georgia border. This town is a tourist destination thanks to the Folk Festival every summer. Living here, however, is not exactly affordable, especially for its current residents. The median household income is about $28,000 a year, which is 40% lower than the national average, and about 30% of their residents live in poverty, and nearly 13% are unemployed. Thanks to the ever-growing housing prices, it's very hard to be able to afford to live here, especially if you're not making any money, and housing prices are going up. It's kind of nuts. At least you get to hear folk music once a year while standing in line at the food bank. That's good news. Number 3, Cross City. Cross City is a small town with big criminal stats. It's like they're trying to win something. Although the crime rate is 15% lower than the national average, the crime rate here is pretty high for a town its size. Just within the last 6 months, there have been a handful of domestic battery crimes, along with a motel shooting where at least 2 residents were killed. Thankfully, those criminals don't have to travel far since the county jail is within the city limits. See? Location, location, location. It works for crime and real estate. Number 2, Lemon Grove. Lemon Grove is definitely a place where you need to find a job within the town or nearby before actually moving here if you want to be able to live somewhat comfortably. It seems like there's very few employment opportunities within the town. That is, unless, of course, you're a skilled aluminum can recycler and own a really bitchin' mountain bike with one of those cool tow-behind trailers things. Yeah, then you can make some money. See those guys all over the place. The income per capita is only about $22,000 a year, which is 19% lower than the state average. However, roughly about 66% of the population in this town are living in poverty. Lemon Grove is not a place you want to live. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget the poll at the end of the video. That helps out with data for the next videos, or upcoming videos, I should say. Always helps when you participate. And number 1, Indiantown. Besides sounding like a racial slur, Indiantown is not a place to be when trying to live a safe, crime-free life. The crime is very prevalent within the city. The overall crime rate is 31% higher than the national average. Just last month, in March, there were 5 felony arrests among the residents. These charges included burglary, grand theft, drug charges, and aggravated battery. They have a little less than 3,000 people. The poverty level in Indiantown is 102% higher than the national average. Now, all 3 of the schools in Indiantown, they got some more in the county, but in Indiantown, they have 3. All 3 of them scored big fat Fs. Those schools would be Indiantown Middle School, Warfield Elementary, and Teen Parent Indiantown. You heard me right. It's called Teen Parent. They have a school called Teen Parent. Who decided this was a good name for a school? Imagine putting that on your resume. That just screams to a potential employer that you're not a good thinker. And Teen Parent has grades 6th through 12th. Does that bother anyone else that there's a group of 6th graders going to a school called Teen Parent? Indiantown is probably the worst town in Florida. All right, everyone, that is my top 10 worst small towns in Florida. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got some information out of it. If you think I missed some, I'd love to hear about it. Leave those in the comments below. Don't forget to give this a big thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you already haven't. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.